Hello, this webinar shows the methodology that was adopted during the LabDay organized by Fondazione Sistema Toscana on 18th January 2019 in Carrara, a small town of Italy. The methodology aimed to actively engage the Riviera Puana stakeholders whose experiences have been crucial for the CultureMoves project. This webinar also tries to provide other people with helpful tools to replicate a similar experience. First of all, what is a LabDay? Basically, it consists of a hands-on working meeting where participants directly contribute to the project's progress. In the CultureMoves project, one of the objectives of Fondazione Sistema Toscana was to explore and identify possible connections and profitable collaborations between dance, in a wide meaning, digital tools, and creative reuse of contents to promote a less-known Tuscany tourism destination like Riviera Puana. Indeed, the LabDay, organized in Carrara, was specifically aimed at involving the territorial stakeholders of that area, engaging them in a creative process that would lead up to the realization of a final video installation combining dance, digital tools, and creative reuse of contents to convey the image of Riviera Puana's cultural heritage. Together with them, we explored best practices, success factors, synergies between cultural heritage, dance and artistic performances, tourism promotion, audio-video production, creative reuse of Europeana content. The identification of the correct target is extremely important in this kind of activity. Participants have to be key stakeholders of your project, and you must make sure that your audience is sufficiently varied to cover the multiplicity of your project's topic. It is important to have a clear rationale of your LabDay and understand well which objectives you want to achieve. For this reason, write down the list of topics you want to cover and connect the dots, identifying for each topic the typology of stakeholders you need to have. In our case, the topics were tourism promotion, audio-video production, cultural heritage, dance and artistic performances, creative reuse of Europeana contents, namely the pillars of CultureMoves project. For this reason, we invited to the Carrara LabDay public and policy-making bodies, cultural institutions, dance professionals, creative industries, archives, and tourism-related subjects. Moreover, participants must be sufficiently interested in participating in this kind of activity. In other words, you have to find the right trigger to motivate them to spend a day far from their businesses and to be concentrated on your agenda. It is good to start recruiting stakeholders using networks you already know. In our case, it was pretty easy to identify people and to match the interests of the participants, because we were working in a well-circumscribed geographical area. Thus, relevant key stakeholders were easily reachable, and people that we have involved were strongly motivated to participate because of their strong feeling of belonging to a territory that suffers from its peripheral position, but at the same time is proud of its cultural identity. Lastly, assure yourself to have about 15-20 participants in the room. It will allow you to have sufficient competencies represented in the same room and at the same time deal with a sustainable number of people. Our LabDay was structured in two parts. The first part was a sort of inspirational session with 3 inspirational speeches delivered by 3 speakers and related to the pillars of our project, namely cultural heritage, dance and tourism, creative reuse of Europeana content. The second part consisted of the core and longer activity, namely a co-creation and participative session conducted by Fondazione Sistema Toscana in collaboration with 2 facilitation experts. The inspirational part kicked the event, leveraging the power of stories as a stimulus for people to imagine and be creative. It lasted about 2 hours. Every speech was 20 minutes long and followed by a final Q&A session of about 40 minutes, during which the audience could directly interact with the speakers. Carrara LabDay speech videos are available on CultureMoves social media channels. The identification of speakers is a crucial part of the LabDay's preparatory work. Indeed, speakers have to blend different skills. They have to be competent and sufficiently authoritative on the matter which they have been invited for. They have to describe a good practice and a relevant example that must be innovative and concrete at the same time. Moreover, speakers are asked to be concise in their exposition, but at the same time, they have to be engaging. They have to give the audience the opportunity to catch and see the scenario they are describing using slides and videos, and at the same time, they have to provide the audience with food for thought. Since the LabDay adopts a peer-to-peer approach, where basically all participants have the potential to give constructive contributions, the inspirational speeches are a sort of ignition moment where the audience is asked to learn the lesson from others, but at the same time is invited to use the lessons learned to move forward and to imagine new scenarios. In our LabDay, we selected the speakers that were able to describe experiences and stories that happened in other regions of Italy or in other countries of Europe. The tourism promotion topic was covered by Paolo Chiappini, director of Fondazione Sistema Toscana. He described the activity and the strategy adopted by Fondazione Sistema Toscana in promoting the Tuscany destination. He explained how Fondazione makes digital channels available for tourism regional players that want to promote their activities. Regarding the relationship between dance and territory promotion, we invited the professional dancer Roberta Di Laura, whose experience had been relevant to show how and how much dance can support the storytelling of a territory. Roberta Di Laura described 2 of her projects. The first one, titled Wunderbar Taranto, was born from the collaboration with the German photographer René Bolch, that is specialized in dance shooting. Together with the photographer, the dancer visited less known places of Taranto, where she had been photographed during her performances. The second example, titled Traveling Ballerina Project, was an experiment to perform variations of famous classical ballets in public spaces of several cities, such as Berlin, Cologne, and Dubai. Regarding the topic of the creative reuse of digital contents, Mercè Lopez and Claudio Prandoni, director and administrator of a consulting and service provider company, illustrated some example and use cases of the Europeana content reuses applied to the tourism and cultural field. Among the other examples, they showcased a video mapping project titled Biblos 3D Mapping Event, realized with the use of digital contents projected on an historical monument, accompanied by the creation of ad hoc soundtrack and special effects. As soon as the inspirational part of our LabDay have been concluded, the co-creative part of the laboratory took place. Following the topics of the introductory speeches, participants were stimulated to answer a crucial question. How can dance, performative arts, and audio-video tools promote together the heritage of a territory? Since this kind of question risked being too broad and possibly scaring the participants, we preferred to break down this topic, tackling it from different perspectives. First of all, participants were asked to pick out and collect, out of their direct or indirect experience, best practices about the combination of performing arts and audio-video tools as a driving force for promoting cultural heritage. Secondly, they were invited to identify key success factors, in other words, those elements that, in their opinion, allow for a productive relationship between dance, technology, and cultural heritage. Elements that can activate a promotional activity of a territory and generate social and economic impacts. Lastly, participants were invited to define the meaning of cultural heritage of their territory, also considering its less evident aspects and mapping elements that were part of the heritage of Riviera Puana. Indeed, participants were encouraged to identify these elements using as orientation 4 macro categories that were places, people, lifestyles, and events. So, for preparing your own co-design phase of LabDay, identify first the main question you want to answer together with the participants and break it down into a few more easy-to-answer questions. Due to the complexity of the topics discussed in the Carrara LabDay, we decided to use a methodology called Appreciative Inquiry. Basically, it consists of a collaborative approach to appreciate the value of the state of the art and get participants to identify the positive aspects and good activities they are dealing with or they personally know. This approach is in contrast to those methods that start with a problem that needs to be fixed. Within the LabDay, Appreciative Inquiry was used as an icebreaker and an exercise in order to uncover information about the values, practices, hopes, and goals of the different individual people. As previously outlined, we invited the participants to answer the following question. What is your best experience with dance, audio-video tools, tourism promotion, and cultural heritage? The group was debriefed about the task and then was encouraged to work within a peer-to-peer space, where each contribution was precious and appreciated. Practically speaking, all participants were invited to sit together in a unique circle and share with the others their personal encounters and experiences. For answering the second question, namely, what factors determine the success of an experience, they were asked to work in small groups to identify 3 success factors per group that, in their opinion, create a fruitful relationship between dance, technology, and cultural heritage. Then, a representative of each group was invited to describe in front of the audience the identified success factors and explain the reason for the selection. Results have been written on post-its and placed on a wall in order to let all people know and visualize the key success factors identified. Moreover, with the help of facilitators, similar success factors were grouped together, trying to find commonalities and identify macro categories. Another participatory technique adopted during the lab was the photolangage, with which participants were stimulated to answer the last crucial question: what's the heritage of your territory? Instead of directly answering this question by words, participants had the opportunity to go deep inside topics using their imagination and creativity. For this, about 70 photo cards depicting different images, clock, beach, flower, baby, people talking, etc., were casually disposed on the area in front of the group that was free to watch and analyze images from any perspective. Each participant was asked to choose in silence one photo that better represented his or her idea and meaning of cultural heritage. As soon as all people had completed their selection, and selected a photo, they were invited one by one to present their choice in front of the others, explaining why they had made that choice. As during the previous Appreciative Inquiry activity, LabDay's facilitators gathered the participants' inputs by sketching a few keywords for every selected image. Then, all selected images were placed on a wall, and similar images and concepts were grouped in macro categories. In general, this kind of technique is helpful in facilitating communication among participants, encouraging everyone to become aware of his/her own point of view regarding the topic proposed and respect each other's opinions. At the same time, the photo langage technique allows organizers to stimulate the creativity of participants, as well as to identify points of strength and track down possible points of weakness to strengthen. During our lab day, this technique helped participants to focus on what defines the cultural heritage of a territory, even the less evident aspects of it, so as to ignite the focus group work devoted to the mapping of the elements that are part of the Riviera Puana heritage. After the photo language activity, participants, divided into small groups, were encouraged to freely identify elements to be distributed over 4 macro categories that help to define the cultural heritage framework of a territory. Specifically, participants were invited to point out relevant aspects of the Riviera Puana cultural heritage by moving within an investigation grid whose 4 cardinal points were, as explained before, places, people, lifestyles, and events. The lab day's work doesn't finish at the end of the lab day. Indeed, it is important that results and feedback collected during the event are organized in a written report which will be circulated among participants after the event. This practice allows organizers to systematize results that will be exploited in the following steps of the project. At the same time, it allows organizers to keep participants involved after the end of the lab day and beyond. In the case of Carrara Lab Day, a written report has been prepared and enriched with sketch notes. Indeed, during the event, we employed a cartoonist that sketched out the highlights of the lab day. Moreover, part of the feedback and the results obtained during the lab day were used as a base for the concept of the video installation dance algorithm that has been later realized by Fondazione Sistema Toscana and shown during the international event Internet Festival. For more information about this video installation, you can watch the webinar number 3. Hopefully, you found this presentation inspiring for your own activities. Thank you for your attention and check out the other episodes as well. Continue to follow us on our official website, CultureMoves.eu, as well as on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.